What fell away in 2025? An end-of-year reflection on shedding, surrender, and the point of no return. I spent much of my work as a transition doula sitting with people at beginnings, new chapters, new thresholds, the quiet unseen moments when someone senses that the old way no longer fits and reaches for support before the unraveling fully begins. At the start of 2025, I believed I was standing at a familiar kind of beginning myself. A fresh year, a clean slate, a chance to steady things before moving forward. What I didn't yet know was that this year wouldn't ask me to start over so much as it would ask me to be held while everything I had outgrown fell away. 2025 was not a gentle year. It was a year of force and grace braided together so tightly that for a long time I couldn't tell which was which. It began with reluctance, stepping into an executive leadership role in the middle of an organizational crisis, not because it was part of some grand plan, but because someone had to hold the center while things unraveled. I carried responsibility that wasn't meant to be permanent, and in doing so, I watched a structure shrink to a third of its former self. Decisions were made, lives were impacted, and eventually I added my own name to the layoff list. That moment mattered more than I realized at the time. It was the first true shedding. What followed was a free fall and also freedom. I landed on Substack not with a strategy, but with honesty. I began writing from the in-between, the space where identity dissolves before it reforms. I didn't yet know that this platform would become a spine for my voice, a place where Goddess in Training would quietly begin taking shape, not as a brand first, but as truth. June brought the podcast into the world, another birth, another exposure, another act of choosing to be seen without armor. And then July arrived with its own reckoning, a medical emergency that forced my body to speak louder than my mind ever would. Healing was not linear. It was humbling. It was slow. It demanded rest, presence, and a kind of listening I had spent years postponing. This was the year my body said, enough. Enough overgiving, enough muscling through, enough proving. Pieces of me were sloughed off, layers that had once kept me functional, admired, employed, useful. The version of me who knew how to hold everything together at the expense of herself. The version who could survive anything but rarely allowed herself to receive. My body forced me into receptivity, into stillness, into financial uncertainty without a map. I sat in the discomfort of not knowing how it would all resolve. I rested when I would have preferred to push. I healed when I would have preferred to perform. And in that enforced pause, something sacred happened. Goddess in Training wasn't just being built, it was being birthed through me. Along the way, I did what I thought I was supposed to do. I applied for jobs. I looked back toward the familiar world of fundraising and leadership roles, toward the steady promise of a 9 to 5. And again, nothing felt aligned. Not because the work lacks meaning, but because returning would require too much sacrifice. My flow, my creativity, my principles. The spaciousness that allows me to listen, to create, to live in integrity with my body and my spirit. I can't go back. Not to structures that require me to fracture myself to fit. Not to roles that demand endurance over embodiment. Not to relationships that are merely good. This year clarified something irreversible. I am no longer available for adequacy. I want exceptional. I want resonance. I want relationships, work, and ways of living that feel decadent, not in excess, but in devotion. I deserve beauty, depth, and reciprocity. I deserve to choose myself without negotiation. This year stripped me down to essence. What remains feels quieter, clearer, more sovereign. As 2025 closes, I can feel the shape of what's arriving, not as a goal, but as a natural consequence. The version of me who emerges now knows what it feels like to be 100% herself, to put herself first without apology, to love every atom of herself as a creator, not for output, but for being. My first post of 2026 will speak more openly about what and who arrived after this year of becoming. But for now, this is the threshold moment, the point of no return, the place where the old path no longer calls my name. Nothing about this year was wasted, nothing was accidental. Everything that fell away made room. And I'm stepping forward lighter, not because I carry less meaning, but because I finally released what was never meant to be carried. This year has felt Persephone coded in a way I didn't recognize at first. Not the myth of abduction, but the quieter truth beneath it. Once you descend and taste what is real, you do not return unchanged. Persephone does not go back to being the maiden in the meadow. She becomes the one who moves between worlds by choice, queen below, sovereign above. I see now that 2025 was my descent into uncertainty, into the body, into truth stripped of performance. Like Persephone, I crossed a line I can't uncross. I have eaten the seeds. I know what it costs to fracture myself for stability, and I am no longer willing to pay that price. The underworld taught me discernment. It taught me decadence as devotion, not excess, but reverence for what is worthy of my life force. Persephone doesn't apologize for seasons she ends. She doesn't negotiate her return. She emerges changed, luminous, and exacting. That is what this year has done to me. I am no longer available for what is merely good. I belong to what is exceptional. I'm learning to receive not because I am weak, but because I am finished proving I can survive without it.